Good afternoon, everyone. Hello. Welcome to Denver, for those of you who are not from Denver or from the state of Colorado. On behalf of myself, my name is Angela, and my co-partner in crime in the back, Noelle, welcome. We are so glad that you're here. As well to the virtual folks, welcome as well. So again, my name is Angela, and I am with the City of Greenwood Village here in Denver, Colorado, and I'm the Human Resource Business Partner there. We are very excited to have you here with our session today, Working While Black. We have a fantastic panel. We've got Michelle Burgess, we've got Helen Higginbotham, we've got Dr. Stacy Jones, and we've got Tara Skinner. But before we begin, I'd just like to share a few housekeeping things with you. First of all, if you could please take a moment to silence your devices. And if you're joining virtually, please note that when you open the session to view the chat and the Q&A, it will autoplay, so it's important that your phone is silenced. Thank you for your cooperation. We will have Q&A after the session is over. Virtual Q&A will go first, and then we will go within the group here for Q&A. And I have the microphone, so I'll be doing an Oprah around the room, trying to catch you. So just please raise your hand high so that I can see. I appreciate that. There are session materials, additional session materials other than the ones that are on the SHRM website. There are additional materials on the back table there. And we truly, truly value your feedback. So when you do your session reviews, please make sure that you're authentic and very open, because we do take these seriously. After the session concludes, if you can just kind of hang in for a second and let me do my final closing remarks, I would greatly appreciate that, because we're going to talk about deep dive conversations. Now, please join me in welcoming Michelle Burgess, Helen Higginbotham, Dr. Stacy Jones, and Tara Skinner for the session titled Working While Black.
Wow. You all applauding makes me emotional this morning. Last night was a difficult night, or maybe not such a difficult night. Oh, I'm breathing. I'm breathing. But I think we need to start out with an icebreaker. Like, we're not going to go to church, but we're going to do a little call and response. So when I say God is good.
All the time. And all the time.
God is good. And how about this one? How many black employees can gather before we have to scatter?
3.
Is it 3?
Yeah.
2, 3, 2, 3,
2.
yeah. And how many black employees are on the team before there are too many?
All right.
Yeah, so that's just to get us warmed up. And the last one I'm going to say, it's not what you say, how you say it. We all hear that, right?
Yes.
So yeah, welcome to, I was going to say when black women gather, because that's what I usually say. But anyway, welcome to this conversation on Working While Black. My name is Helen Higginbotham, and I cannot tell you how pleased I am to be here with my colleagues. But I have to tell you that we met last year at this conference. So turn to your neighbor, make sure you know who they are, and network with them.
There you go, to your neighbor. We got a good crowd.
So all right, y'all, we ain't.
Come back. Love it.
Hey, we all. Okay, so each of us.
Right.
Each of us.
They did good.
Okay.
All right, we're back.
Yeah, we're back, y'all. Okay. But definitely, okay. So each of us brings to this conversation, we come to this conversation from a shared perspective, but from different vantage points. And we will share some of that with you today. So we're going to start out by doing the introductions, and I'll start with Michelle. We're going to introduce ourselves and tell you why this conversation is important to us.
Thank you, Helen. I'm Michelle Burgess. I'm the founder and CEO of Just Reset It, and really help with cultural transformations and also personal or professional resets as well. This is really important to me because the well-being of the Black employee, based on the experience that we have, is often impacted in the workforce. And so today's conversation is really for those who've been carrying the weight of working while Black, and that seems like too much, and maybe you're wondering if anyone does understand. So you're not alone. I see you. I am you. And I'm incredibly passionate about your well-being and then the impact from the workplace trauma. There's definitely no easy fix, but we can certainly work our way through this. Oftentimes, I know Black employees may feel isolated due to the lack of representation in leadership positions or any span across their teams. And this isolation can certainly lead you to feeling unsupported, maybe misunderstood, or less engaged in the workplace. But we're going to talk about that today. So thanks for having us.
And I am Dr. Stacy Jones, and I am the CEO of Clarivate Coaching and Consulting, also known as the Visibility Doc. And why am I called the Visibility Doc? Because I got my doctorate in the experiences of Black women in executive positions who felt either invisible or hypervisible because they were often the only one at the table. I had that experience. I still have that experience. I'm here in my capacity as a coach, and this is important to me because I feel as if some of the experiences that we have are not often known. We keep them to ourselves, and we are here to talk about it, to talk about what those experiences are, to let you all know that you're not alone. It's not just in your head. These things are actually happening. You are validated, and we want to talk about that and share that experience with you.
I'm Tara Skinner. Wow, my mic is really loud. Okay, so I'm Tara Skinner, and I'm here today because, I'm an advocate for change. So I'm not a CEO of anything just yet. I'm working my way to that. But, I represent those of us who have taken an alternate path in our careers. We may not have our MBA, we may not even have a degree. And I feel like what makes this so important to us is that everybody needs to have a voice, and we move through this world largely invisible unless we're being fetishized or it's in a negative situation. And so I want us all to have the ability to be seen for who we are and understood in our experiences.
Can you hear me?
Okay.
Okay, so I am Helen Higginbotham, and I am an attorney, and I have an MBA, and I come to this conversation wearing two hats. I have an organization called When Black Women Gather, so Black women in the room, please scan my card and join When Black Women Gather. And in that capacity, I host conversations, and I call myself the conversation lady because we call conversations difficult. I don't call them difficult. I think we call a conversation that we don't want to have. We label it difficult, or we'll call it uncomfortable. But that means it's probably a necessary conversation. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to have what is a necessary conversation that just doesn't happen. And my other hat is I just stepped out on my own and, we're going to talk today about when it's time to leave. So I've actually started another organization, a corporation called H² Solutions, and that one I want to work with corporations so that we can deal with some of these issues. So this conversation is important to me for all the reasons that they just said, so I'm not going to repeat them. But today, if nothing else happens, I want everybody in this room to have voice. If you're not a Black employee, then you're here to hopefully learn and hear the experiences of your colleagues or those people who report to you. So thank you for coming. We have to give a strong shout out. Thank you to SHRM for giving us the space to have this conversation. And I also have to give them props for not changing our conversation. Yes. Yeah, so yeah, kudos to them, right? Yes. Yeah. But I also want to also give a disclaimer that we all speak on our own behalf. We're not here representing any entity other than our own. We're not here to give you advice, right? We're just sharing our experiences, and we encourage that you familiarize yourself with the laws that are in your area and the policies that are associated with your companies. Okay, so we cannot have this conversation without telling you why are we focusing on the experience of the Black employee. First and foremost, it's a conversation that just doesn't happen. I think everybody in this room can attest to that. Nobody's talking about the Black employee experience. We get lost in the conversation as we discuss issues of diversity. But let's be clear, but for the Civil Rights Act of 1964, we're not even talking DEI, right? So we have to talk about the Black employee experience. We are not suggesting that other employees don't have some of the experiences that Black employees have in the workplace. We are suggesting, however, that the outcome and the impact of those experiences can be very different for Black employees. Often, we lack the resources to pursue recourse or remedies that are available to others. And the impact of what happens to us in the workplace is different in that it is often shaped by anti-Black racism, let's be clear, nobody talks about that, discrimination, microaggressions, unconscious bias, and those things may or may not be happening to other people, but it leaves us feeling stress and, let's use the buzzword, traumatized in the workplace. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So today we give you voice, Black employees, to express, all of us, to express our feelings in the workplace and to hear, so that we know that we're not alone and that these are experiences that can be unique to us. So on that note, I turn it over to Stacy, who will tell you about the Black employee work cycle.
So when we started talking about this last year, we were wondering if there was something that, we started talking about our own personal experiences. And we were looking for research, because I'm a researcher. We all want to have everything grounded in research. And we found this wheel, talked about the Black employee work cycle. We found some another model that talked about Black women and how they experienced the workplace. And we kind of put those together. And this is what we came up with, this wheel here. So the Black employee work cycle, it goes through a honeymoon period. Where we're happy to be in the space, we're happy to have the job, we're optimistic about our future experience, and then we get to a place where we are facing reality, right? Possibly retaliation because of some of the interactions that we're having. Burnout. Eventually, we get to that place where we're burned out from the experiences that we're having, and then we are making a decision: are we going to exit? If we exit, then we transition to another organization where this cycle tends to repeat itself. And that leaves us in a place of feeling traumatized. Sometimes we have to just adapt over and over again. We're not unpacking this for ourselves. A lot of Black employees or Black people just in general, sometimes we're not using or accessing some of the resources that are available to us, right? Even each other as resources. And then we go to that place where we're talking about recruitment, onboarding, and starting that cycle all over again. So we're going to go into transition right now to talk about the honeymoon period, that optimism, and go through some of the experiences that we've encountered and talk about it a little bit more.
I think even when you think about the honeymoon, I mean, you're so excited, right? You found a good brand, maybe you got a good salary, you landed your dream role, and you're so excited. Now, we know that honeymoon period lasts different. There's different lengths of time. Sometimes it might be a couple of weeks. I don't know, maybe for my parents it was 62 years, but it could definitely certainly vary. And there are definitely times where you feel so needed, you're excited, you feel really still welcome, right? Mm-hmm. But there's so many things that happen, and sometimes it's very suddenly. I mean, I think I've been in a position where I think it was 2 weeks in, and I think that's about how quick I found out that my expertise was definitely, discounted, or I recognized that my peers were paid, differently, than I was, and I had access because of the role. But I think even with that quick 2 weeks, and it took a long time for, any of that to even be addressed, right? And then to even be resolved. And I can't say that necessarily was resolved the way that should have been.
Stacey, share with us when the employer talked to you about assimilating.
Yeah, so I remember getting one of my dream jobs in my career, and great organization, I thought. And I go to meet the HR director, and he offers his hand to shake with me. And I shook his hand. He says, "Beware, you will become assimilated." And I'm like, wait, what is, I don't, just completely confused about what does that mean? Do I have to divest a part of myself in order to fit in this environment? Or, what does that mean for me as an individual? And I have to tell you, I carried that throughout the subsequent organizations that I went to, is just constantly thinking, what is wrong with me that he thought to say that to me, that I was going to become assimilated into that environment? So it's those types of things that Tara calls them what you said, it was a beige flag. Yeah, a beige flag, because it definitely, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up after having that conversation as a person that is from a person that was the HR director, right? So.
And it can be so disheartening. I mean, I remember, going to an organization, I was excited because they won all these awards for diversity and inclusion, and there was just a list of awards. And I was new to the organization. I'd been there only a couple of weeks, and we were having a leadership meeting. And I can still remember to this day walking around thinking, okay, maybe there's another conference going on, because the room didn't even look diverse from that. And the person's here actually in the room, and I remember saying, "Is there another ballroom?" And she said, "No, this is it." I said, "Here we go again. 1, 2, 3, 4 out of, 400 or 500 people." So it's so being disappointed again 2 weeks in.
Yeah.
I mean, my shortest time period was 20
Talk
minutes.
up.
Gotta talk.
Is it on?
Can you hear me at all?
No. He turned you down and then he turned you off. It's on?
Nope, battery looks like it's dead, no green light.
No green light.
Thank you.
Okay, my shortest honeymoon period was about 20 minutes when I walked in the door. And my new CHRO says, "Oh my goodness, I'm so glad you're here. We had a big problem this morning. I'm in a tech field more than anybody else. I need you to sit down here and I need you to fix this." And she's like, we'll get you lunch or whatever, but I need this resolved today. And so I literally 10 hours later, 7 o'clock at night, I got there at 9, when it's resolved, after only going to the bathroom and them bringing me food, I was like, oh, this is going to be a short stay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at least you recognized it, right?
Yeah.
Well, and it was an opportunity that was giving me something, so I stayed longer than I would have otherwise.
Right.
But I needed that to grow in my career, and I recognized that as well. So the plan was always to stay a short period of time, but it was now I know I need to have my exit strategy now for when I'm ready.
Right. Yeah, which takes us right into the next slide, where we're going to talk about when reality starts setting in and those beige flags start turning red. What kinds of things are happening to us, right? Now all of a sudden, we're going to share with you, please, we share with you in the PowerPoint lots of resources. Make sure that you check out those resources. But there's one, which I'm sure everybody can relate to, when you go from being office pet to the office threat. Right? Oh, yeah, I thought that was. Yeah, okay. They're clapping, snapping. But yeah, so, we have to, and piggybacking on what Tara said, we go into these situations and there's some expectation that you're going to fix things and nobody else could fix. And I don't know about you, but working in labor relations, I have walked into situations where they think I'm going to fire somebody on the first day. No, that's not happening. And usually that person looks like me, right? So I'm going to be the bad, right? You're going to be the person who's going to take on that ownership. And we have to ask ourselves really difficult questions. I'm at an age now where I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. You know, if Sally's been here and been ineffective for 5 years, I'm not here to fix it for you. When Sally becomes ineffective under my watch, we'll deal with it. So we have that happen so much, you know, and we talk about being the cleanup woman, right? I'm sure everybody's had that.
And there's a name for that. You know, in research, it's called the glass cliff. And it's a lot of times when women of color, Black women specifically, are placed into these situations where, and we've seen it, we have examples of this and later on in the slides, where they have been put into these esteemed positions, but maybe not given the resources, or might be given a really, really challenging task that nobody could do. Right? But then we see that they weren't able to attend to the task to the expectation of that company. And then what? They're fired, right? It wasn't their fault. That challenge existed there beforehand.
Right.
But yet they're demonized in the public realm and in their, you know, in the social realm sometimes as well. So that's a real thing that's happening. And we're experiencing it, but we're not really talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then most of us will find that once we start pushing for accountability, that's when our shift happens, right? We shift from, oh, we loved their ideas, they were doing everything that we wanted as from an organization. Then you start to become the problem because you're saying to people, you know, we need to hold everyone accountable the same way. So a lot of organizations, no one's held accountable. Some organizations, it's only certain people are held accountable. Mm-hmm. And when you start to say, well, if we're going to hold these people accountable, everyone needs to be held accountable. A lot of times, that's when we are the problem. You become, you're no longer a good fit for the organization.
Right. I've heard that before. Right.
Yeah.
You know, that's when your conflicts become communication issues. She was aggressive. Oh, her face was saying too much in a meeting.
You didn't smile. How many times have people come up to you and said, could you smile? Are you okay? Are you angry? Like, smile. Like, why I gotta smile, right? You're very magical.
Yeah.
And then you're asked to cross-train your replacement.
Yes, that part. And you have the right to say no. I have to tell you, one of my very early jobs, MCI is no longer in business, so I will tell you. It was MCI. And I had an MBA, and this is God's honest truth. The person who hired me had an MBA just like I did, right? So she decided she wanted to go home and make babies. That's fine. She calls me into her office, and she tells me that she's going to go home and make babies, and that I won't say her real name.
I was going to mute you.
Savannah is going to be my new supervisor. I think Savannah had a GED, right? Savannah might have had a high school diploma, and I'm not exaggerating. Savannah was a white female, and she wanted me to help Savannah along to learn the job. And I'm like, I was not a lawyer, so I'm telling you this to give you to empower you. I said, I'm not doing that. I'm not reporting to Savannah. Well, why not? And I never even used the white word. I said, because I have an MBA and Savannah has a GED. Yeah, that part. Call and response still happening. Mm-hmm. But literally, I said I wasn't going to report to her. And I thanked her for her time. And I let her know that I would be advancing the situation to the next level of management, which I did, which was a black female, tell y'all that, right? Who told me that what I could do to get the job the next time. So I thanked her for her time, and I went, and I moved on to the VP. And I'm here to tell you that Savannah never became my supervisor, and I never got fired. Right. Yes. So, and I say that because when we talk about the stress and I could have reported to Savannah and been angry every day.
Yeah.
Right. We're not doing that. And there's another thing that we need to talk about in that scenario. The black on black oppression. Mm-hmm. Ooh, right? Okay.
Don't talk about it, y'all.
That sounds like deep dive in the next one.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. So we can talk about it, right? Definitely in the deep dive room, but we need to be conscious of that. What is our responsibility when we're in that place? And yes, we have jobs and families and things like that, but at some point, we have to recognize at where do we draw the line for our integrity. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I'm taking up.
No, I think that's perfect. And you mentioned earlier about going from the pet to the threat. And really, at some point, you're a subject matter expert. It's why you were hired. It's the reason that you're there. Of course, you might be cleaning up the other things that no one else could do. But it really takes, you have to be under leadership that can handle your expertise.
Right.
If they can leverage your expertise, learn from you, and help to grow you, then that's great. But if they're threatened by it, then all of a sudden the things that you call to attention or that you want people to be accountable for, then now you've become the problem. And so that's when the rest of everything else starts happening. Like you said, you're not going to be a good fit. You start, the organization will deny and or ignore and of course blame you that there's something going on. Like, well, I was just speaking up. I was just bringing it to your attention. But maybe they don't want to fix it, or it's the fact that you brought it up and it wasn't the supervisor or the peer. They can't handle you.
Right.
Can't handle you. And that list of those microaggressions, I know, Stacey, you say they're macro, really.
Yeah.
They really are, because it's death by 1,000 cuts.
Death by 1,000 cuts.
But we're held to a higher standard, and it's exhausting. We're often, we're overutilized, we're undervalued. Often we are invited, but we're not necessarily welcome. And this continues along, that journey. And where do you go? Who you're supposed to talk to? How do you report that? And when you do, we know that we hesitate because we fear retaliation.
Right, right, and that's real. That's real. I remember being in situations where we're experiencing microaggressions and sitting back and wondering, is this really happening? Is that really a thing? And not really having anybody to talk to about it, right? Because you're seen as either an expert in your field. You don't want to come into, at least I didn't want to come in and be like whining about a situation that may be perceived as really, really minor. But it really is death by 1,000 cuts, because what does that do to your psyche?
Every day.
We're not unpacking this, as I said earlier. We're not really talking about it. And we're taking this home. We're taking this home to our families. We're not able to live up to the potential that we have in the workplace, nor at home, because of all of this stuff that's happening at work.
Not only that, we internalize it. So even if you experienced it at your previous job or the job before that, you're still taking that insecurity that's been embedded into you to your next role. So then you overperform in the beginning to make sure and to feel that you're actually capable of doing the job, that people are not going to see the same things, that you're not going to have the same issues, that somebody's not going to say the same thing to you.
Right.
And then when it does happen, or if it does happen and they do say the same thing, then you're like, it really is me, but it's not you.
Right.
It's the situation. It's the fact that our society is set in a certain way that you're always going to be perceived in a certain manner.
That's right.
And I think we need to talk about, most people in this room are, I'm assuming, working in DEI or HR in some capacity. We're bought into those kinds of roles to implement change, right? And then when you start pointing out what, the deficiencies of the organization, it's fine as long as you're just talking about the staff. But I'm telling you, I have worked from I call it the street suite to the C-suite, okay? Street suite is coming in the door, and the outcome is the same. Like, you end up in the same place. The cut feels different, but we end up at the same place. And the other thing that I don't want us to miss as we talk about the reality setting in is, at this point, we're probably finding out that there's some huge pay disparity, right? And, we work in these companies and they tell you, don't share your pay.
Yeah.
That's a red flag, right?
Yeah.
And I think companies are moving now, hopefully, to the point where they're advertising the salary. But that has nothing, you don't know how much she got for a promotion and what I got. I mean, a bonus with her performance appraisal, right? So all of those things come into play for us. And if you follow Robin DiAngelo, who wrote White Fragility, she warns, I don't think she says black, because nobody says black. We say people of color and marginalized communities. But she warns people in those communities that when we speak up, we do it at our own peril. So those are issues that are unique to us as opposed to maybe others in the room.
I think the challenging part of even being, if you're in, HR or the DEI, space, is that you're brought in, then you are experiencing what you're supposed
wow.
to be
Yes.
dismantling. Can I say that again? You're
Yes.
experiencing what
We
you're
got a quick,
supposed
we all
to
snap for that one.
dismantle. And how can you do that and do it well when you're feeling it at the same time? Like these are the practices I can remember, slicing and dicing data. I originally came from operations before I went to that space, and so I'm all about the numbers. But I'm slicing and dicing the data, and then I'm calling out, like, okay, these are outliers, outliers. And then I see Burgess. I'm like, is there another Burgess? I'm like, oh my God, it's me. So I see that I was an outlier. Now I have access from all the way to the top, all the way through, and I see myself as an outlier when I'm doing an equity audit. I've only been there short period of time, that's those 2 weeks, right? Beige flag turns red, but I'm seeing it. So I'm experiencing it. I'm bringing it to the attention that supposedly I have an issue, or it's, the list, right? Which said, oh, it's just, it's black people. You're just all about black people. No, that's just who's on the list that's having the inequities. Yeah. I'm bringing it to your attention, and I happen to be one of those, and I just got here, and I'm here to go through this process, and I'm supposed to be dismantling it, and it's starting right there, and I'm experiencing it at the same time.
It's something else that you alluded to, Michelle, is that the experiences that we have as D&I professionals, and knowing that we're holding space for other people or for our organizations, but nobody's holding space for us, right? There's that, so we need to really use this as a community. Like we said, we met here last year, so we have to make sure that we're okay in order to make sure that the spaces that we're in and holding space for are also okay.
And let me just say, when I was here last year, I'm sure there are people in the room who I also met last year. And if you were black, I was collecting your business card. Because I wanted us, because I recognize what we're dealing with, right? And I called us SHRM Noir, right? Yeah. And so we started out doing, group calls, whatever. But I have to tell you that going through my own experience, right? I didn't know these ladies, but we were all on the phone. I'm like, I need to decompress, and we were all there. They were all there for me. So, and that's why I'm saying networking is so important, and to be able to talk to people who I don't have to give you every little detail because you already know the unspoken.
Yes.
Right? So yeah, so that's really important.
And, and that leads to burnout, and then your decision to whether you're going to exit or if you're going to stay. And so what we were talking about is that you have to have a person outside of your situation, because sometimes you're stuck in the situation, and though it feels off, you aren't recognizing the gravity of it unless you say to somebody who's not involved, this is what's going on, and they go, that's really a bigger problem than what you think it is. Right. So you have to be able to be willing to share that with someone, and sometimes and it's usually outside of your organization. And it's usually, it could be your friend, it could be somebody you met at one of these events, it could be somebody that you've connected to at another industry thing, it could be someone who might have experienced the same way as you, but it's actually probably better somebody who has a little bit of a different experience, because if they're seeing it too, then it's broader. And that can help you to not internalize it, because you're like, it's not me, it's them. It's the situation, it's the corporation, it's how society is set up, but what do I do? So we know that we all get burnout. We know that we all take that home. We take our pain, our trauma, the fact that we're being micromanaged in the office, the battle fatigue, the tone policing, all of that stuff we take home, and at the end of the day, we're miserable and we're tired, and we, as Helen likes to say, if you go home on Friday,
you wake up on Friday dreading Monday, it's time to walk, or at least start thinking about what's your next step.
Sunday night sets in.
Okay.
And I know you've heard us say a couple of times about having an exit strategy, but that's about protecting yourself, right? You always have to think about how you want to end the relationship, because regardless of any relationships that you're in, sometimes they're going to end. And so and more often it's with your employer. So you have to have a plan, and you have to know what is your line in the sand. What is going to make you leave? What is it time for you to walk away? When is it time for you to say, regardless of what else is going in my life, I have to figure this out because I have to get out of here. And the other thing is, we also recognize that sometimes you have to stay longer than you want because you have things happening in your life that you have to take care of, and the security of that role keeps you able to do that. And so then you have to figure out how you're going to stay and what you need to do to have your peace of mind while you're staying. What is, your goal, that you have to accomplish this, but you have to figure out what's going to help you maintain your peace of mind while you're in your outside life situation that's making you stay in your potentially abusive work situation.
And I think we have to be,
Protect your peace. That's basically what she's saying. And we hear that all the time, but it's so real. Protect your peace. I know you need the paycheck, but at the end of the day, your mental health, your spiritual health, your physical health, which we're going to talk about, right? All of that has to come into play at some point. And while you might want to stay at that job, you really have to sit down and evaluate for yourself, is it worth it?
Yeah.
I
I
know.
think we have to be really careful too, right? Because remember how we were talking about, we do it to each other. We're like, oh my gosh, you got a good job. Why would you leave that
yeah.
job,
Oh my
right? And so
God,
you're around
yes.
people like, you work for
Right.
what company?
Yeah.
Why would you leave?
Yeah.
But maybe because we haven't talked about it, we haven't internalized it, they have no idea. Yeah, it's a great job. I'm getting paid. I'm getting beat up every day, right? And that's, what it's feeling. Right. So we surround ourselves. You need to surround yourself with people that will help you with your exit strategy.
Exactly.
Because if you're continuing being
coping.
told, you're coping, right?
Exit or coping,
Yeah.
because
Right.
everybody can't leave. We get that.
Yeah.
So if you got to
Yet.
cope, figure it right. Yet. It is.
Yeah, because you have to bet on yourself. At the end of the day, you know that you were able to get this position. You have skills that may not be recognized in the workplace. Just bet on yourself. God has the rest. For those of us that are spiritual, some of us are not. But make sure that you're in a good position and can be able to pivot and move on if you need to. If that situation is so bad that you're not recognizing aspects of yourself, then it is time. It's time to make a choice.
How many have been in a situation where, honestly, you wake up in the morning and you're sick physically? Pit in your, okay, hands are going up. You are physically sick because you have to subject yourself to this situation. That's not worth it, and I don't know how we do it, but somehow we have to manage it, that we can either figure out how we're going to exist, how much longer we can exist, or how we remove ourselves from that situation. But just know that your mental health, your physical health, your peace of mind, nothing is more valuable than that. You have children, you have family members that love you, and we die from stress-related disorders, right? More than anybody else. And how much time do we spend in the workplace? So how much of that stress is coming from the workplace? And, our colleagues who are out there, please hear us. This is what Black employees are dealing with on a very personal level. And are you offering space if you're supervising people? Are you offering them space to have these conversations? And when they come to you with these concerns, particularly those of us who've done the work, the DEI work, when people come to you and say, this is my experience, this is what I'm feeling, you can't retaliate against them. I mean, that's what happens, right? But then you haven't done the work, right? And even if you have done the work, I promise you, you have not been doing the work for as long as that person's been Black. Okay. Right? So, I've been Black for, I was going to say how old I am, but I'll let y'all think I'm younger. But for many years, I've been a Black woman. So, and I appreciate that since 2015, you've been doing DEI work and going to race relation workshops. But you are not an authority on me. I still know me better than you. Right? So, yeah. So, and we're going to hear from you all, too, so we want to keep this moving, because we all need to hear from each other. Go ahead.
Well, I just think, too, we're also even in this space because we're unheard.
Right.
That's the whole reason for, inclusion, diversity, the HR, the culture, access, belonging, all of it. We've just been unheard. And it's so hard sometimes when you are trying to exit because your mistakes have been amplified where you were, and your accomplishments were diminished or taken credit for. So as you transition into the next, it makes it even harder. Now I'm exiting, and I'm completely disillusioned because I was so excited about the company. It was up here, and now I have to leave. But I mean, you're hurt. You're traumatized. You're wounded. So you've got to go. You're leaving now, scarred, and then you got to start over. Start the cycle again.
And you have to sell yourself in the recruitment process. You have to now walk away from all of the trauma you just experienced and say, hey, I'm great. I'm amazing at my job. I can do this. I can do that. But you're not feeling that because you've internalized all of your trauma. You're still thinking in the back of your head, are these people going to see through that I'm faking? Is this, you might have a case of imposter syndrome, but you're really not an imposter. You really are good at your job. It really was the situation you were put in. So for this slide, we only have 4 things on here, but that's because most of the things we want to talk about for recruiting and onboarding is how to do it better. So we want you to take note of any beige flags in the process. And the beige flag is something that just seems off, just a little bit. Like it's nothing that would stop you from taking the job. It's something that you are thinking, that could be a concern. That flag, take note of that, because that's going to be something you're going to find, and it'll either develop into a red flag, it'll really be something when you get into the role, or it's going to be something that, okay, it was just some little quirk that they have as an organization that maybe you can help them resolve so that other people aren't coming in with the same wary thought in their mind. Be mindful of microaggressions. Wow. Sorry. Be mindful of your microaggressions during the process, because if these are the people you're going to be dealing with on a day-to-day basis, especially if you get to the hiring manager interview and they've done some microaggressions towards you just in that interview, it's not going to get better. It's not going to get better. It's only going to get worse. So be aware of that. Also, do not be afraid to negotiate your salary. Know your worth.
Right.
Know the market, know your worth, and do not be afraid to negotiate your salary. Do not be afraid to negotiate your bonus. Do not be afraid to say, I'm walking away from a bonus at this company. You will need to give me this bonus if you want me to join you. Do not be afraid to say that I have 2 weeks of vacation planned on these dates, and I will need to take that with my family.
Even if you don't have it.
Right there. Yes, that's true. That's true.
Right? I don't start, when I started, I was like, I know, I'm not working a whole year to get a week off. I've already got it planned. Yeah. Right, yes. I remember I wanted to go to Egypt. And I wasn't going to go to Egypt for a week. Why would I do that? So I was very clear. You don't have to pay me, but I'm going. And, and that's about protecting your peace, right? Taking care of yourself. Because I know you all heard about the lady at Wells Fargo who had been dead in her cube for 4 days.
Right.
So take care of you first, right? Do your good job for the company because that's what you're hired for, but don't ever lose sight of yourself and why you get up every morning to do what you do. You do it for your survival, not the company's, because the company will go on with or without you.
Yeah. And one more thing I think on the salary, because this is such a big one that I see and often. So if I said, LaTanya, what's your salary expectations? Don't answer that question. So if somebody asks me and they say, Michelle, what are your salary expectations? I expect to be paid at the highest level of your salary range, your budget. What would that be? Because when they're not transparent, it's because they're hiding something. Right. And so I'm going to say it again. I said, well, I would need to know more information about your total rewards. I mean, for all I know, your insurance is $1,000 a month. So I need to know more about that. Because if I give a number, if I say, you know what, I need $250. And they're going, it started at $300. We're going to give you $260. Woo! But you're going to shortchange. Never give a number. If you're filling something out, put a 0. put a zero. And they called me and they said, you put zero in the salary.
Yeah.
I did.
Sure did.
I did. I said, let's talk about it. Always at the highest in the range based on my experience. What would that be?
Right.
It's a big one, because that's probably one of the biggest gaps is where it starts. And that's your pay, and it's going to impact you for a long
I can
time.
share one experience where the employer already, they were hiring like 3 or 4 people at the same time. So the hiring manager already said to pay them. And for whatever reason, the HR person thought, well, let me negotiate this. Well, unfortunately, the brown person, who was not a black person, but it was a brown person, and he finds out that he is making less than his peers. They're all hired at the same time, equally yoked. But I couldn't understand, why is HR even negotiating it when the hiring manager already told them what to hire? And guess what they said? Their excuse was that he didn't negotiate, that the other people had better negotiation skills. Okay, but now that we're aware of it, can we just fix it, right? Bring him whole. And they wouldn't. So, and I say they, I keep saying they, right? But we're in this room. We're all in these, so we can control some of this. But yeah.
So we want to give you all a little bit of time to ask questions. So if you have questions, get those ready virtually and here in the room. But we wanted to talk a little bit about what the impact of some of these experiences are for us. And we looked, throughout the year that we've had, here are a few. Dr. Bonnie, who was at Lincoln University. Many of you are familiar with this situation.
Zori Lincoln, not the other one.
Right, who committed suicide. She had had certain experiences in the workplace as a D&I professional, and nobody was listening to her, and she had a breakdown and committed suicide. Mr. Joseph B. Hill was a chief diversity officer who was simply flagging that these are situations that are happening, and the organization that he was working with did not want to hear it, and they fired him. And Dr. Claudine Gay at Harvard, we saw her very, very visible this past year, where she was terminated and demonized for all sorts of things where her similarly situated peers had not been. Right. So this is the impact, y'all. This is real. And so you have to take care of yourselves. You have to know what the situations are that you're going into. We recognize that there is compassion fatigue. Compassion fatigue is a real thing. So make sure that you're networking with each other, with us, and getting that support that you need so that we don't have negative impacts like this to the extent that we can prevent it.
Yeah. And I think the thing we cannot overlook, that Dr. Bonnie was an HBCU, okay? And the person who is accused of harassing her, bullying her to this extent was a white male who was the president. Wait, no. He was a white male who was the previous athletic director, and now he's president at an HBCU. Has that ever happened for any of you? I'm just curious. But anyway, the point that I'm making is that she was in an environment that she should have been able to feel safe, right? And we talk about psychological safety. We have all these buzzwords, right? And she even goes to the board of directors and says, hey, I need help. And I'm going to guess that board of directors probably look like us, many of them. Although we can't assume that, right? Because we don't know who's sitting around the table. But she's at an HBCU, a black environment, and she still doesn't get the support that she needs. So, and this slide just talks about the stress, diabetes, heart disease, obesity, cancer, hypertension, substance abuse, asthma. All those things are stress related, and we are the number one victim of all of these. So again, it comes from a lot of things, but how much of it is perpetuated in the workplace? The life expectancy for black people is 4 times less than white, right? Did I say year?
4 years.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. See, I'm telling you, this choir is good. Yes, 4. It's 4 years, right? So 4 years less, but it's different, right? So we need to take care of ourselves. Anything else you want to say about this one?
No, I think really just, the well-being,
get to
just
you guys.
how important it is. We want to hear from you, and then we're also going to take a deeper dive, next door. We can transition out of here, but there is a well-being wheel. You can take a picture of this, but then there's some card copies in the back too, and everything really starts in the middle. It goes, 0 to 10, and just pinpoint, each part, and really just see where it looks. And we know that a wheel that's not balanced, it's going to go flat. It's not going to get you very far, and so it's really important. But that well-being part, it's really most important, and really just want you to know that you are heard.
We see you.
We see you, we're experiencing it, and there's a lot of resources there. And sometimes we don't take advantage of the resources that are there even at our organizations, whether it's your EAP. But, don't stand up alone, don't stand up, isolated. You can probably have a bigger voice if you can find someone else that you can stand up with collectively versus just being you. Because if it's just you, then at some point you'll likely be targeted, especially if you're working and you're in an underrepresented situation to begin with.
Yeah, and to add to that, if you're looking for an ally, you're looking for an ally for a task or a project at work. You're not looking for somebody who has an ideological similarity to you. You're looking for somebody who is within your organization, who has the same goal as you, who's willing to stand side by side with you to get it done. If that's one of the best ways to reduce yourself and to remove yourself from being isolated in a situation, is to find somebody who has the same thing that they want done and work with them to get it done. That I find that that's helped me in most organizations, is to find the one person who also needs this to happen, who might have better connections or have been there longer, who can also help you get this done. And yes, that does mean sharing the accolades, but that also means you get the work done without being demonized. So,
And that person may not look like you.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
Yeah, and it's okay. So we want to really, this time flies by because this is such a necessary conversation. But real quickly, I'm just going to run through things that you can do, and then we're going to, if you all can start lining up at the mics or however we're going to do the questions.
we're going to hand the mic.
We have 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So does anybody have questions? Oh, come on up.
go ahead.
However. Yeah.
We have a question from online, from the virtual.
Yes.
We're going to do that one.
Yes, you'll get
Okay.
the PowerPoint. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, we will.
Okay. Thank
We will.
you.
But real quickly, while we're waiting, so things that you can do is keep a journal. Like at the end, and this was Stacy, I love that. At the end of every day, sit down and take a minute to write what was your experience today. Because
A1.
while it feels like it doesn't mean anything, trust me, it does, right? Start emailing stuff to your house, blind copy stuff to your house.
Airdrop on another Wi-Fi.
Okay. And be
room.
on the defense from day one. You know what, Omarosa, I'm not a fan of hers, but when they came for Omarosa, they couldn't touch her because she had been keeping records. And they didn't know what she had. She had counters, she had recordings. So don't be recording people, understand the state law that you're in. But she had all of that. Get a coach, which is what Stacy was saying. I'm a Stacy or Tara. So as a coach, allies, what have you. Document. You cannot document enough, right? And know the laws in your area and reach out to us, right? Because we're going to continue this conversation. But right now, let's get to the questions real quickly. Go ahead. Oh, and
We're going to do the virtual questions first. We have 2.
okay.
First question is, our company's climate survey shows that our black employees are struggling the most out of all employees of color. Is this a typical trend? If so, why?
Well, we have to know struggling, but
They're struggling.
we would need more information on what kind of struggling and defined by who.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would say yes.
But
Yeah.
I would say, if from employee surveys I've seen, yes, that's usually how the respondents answer.
Yeah, but then does the company even do anything with the climate survey? Unless it says what we're looking for it to say, somehow it finds itself in the circular, what do they call it, the circular file? Right. And exit interviews, are you doing exit interviews? Are you reading them?
And there's a big difference between if you have these really high engagement scores, but then you have a demographic that's leaving high as well, then that's not matching.
Yeah, retention is an issue. So don't act, it's the blind, it's the elephant in the room. Go ahead.
While we've either experienced the glass ceiling or know they exist, can you share your thoughts on the sticky floors?
Deep dive.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into that. The sticky floor, the concrete ceiling, which Black people experience more than others. The bamboo ceiling, which Asian Americans experience. The sticky floor is where you just can't seem to get up. And that's true for us. You know, sometimes we have to go through a whole bunch of different, like I got a PhD because of the sticky floor. You know, because I feel like I just had to keep moving. I need to add this to my backpack, have to add this. But other folks don't have to, you know. So that's a real thing. And hopefully society will change so that we don't have to do this. But you have to do what you need to do to be able to move up. And sometimes that's moving. Sometimes that's moving and taking a step back to take a leap forward. Sometimes that's lateraling over and not getting a raise, but making sure that you're positioned so that you can move up and not staying in that situation if you can afford to leave.
And sometimes it's changing your whole career.
Yeah.
Yeah, change
Sometimes
industries.
it's changing your whole career.
Which I've done a million times. Go ahead with your question, please.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to first say thank you all for allowing this platform. This is the first time in my career I've ever been in a situation where I'm able to share about this topic. So thank you to you and SHRM for providing this platform. I met Helen yesterday in the wonderful lunchroom. She's like, bring your butt to this session tomorrow. Her experiences, so I promised I would. But I'd like to share a little bit about my experience and then ask a question if I could. My name is Dr. Julian Lee. I'm the Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Process Improvement for a federally qualified health center in Sioux City, Iowa. Is there anybody in the room working in the state of Iowa? Yes, I thought that would be the case.
Talk about being the only one.
So I shared that just to provide context that in the state of Iowa, only 1.4% of the population, working population is African American. Only 4.1% of the entire Iowa population is African American. So the whole concept of invisibility, like you talked about, is real. In my current role, I am one of 4 Black African American employees for my community health center. I am one of 25 leadership team members. I'm the only African American on the leadership team. With that being said, I'm the only African American with 2 advanced degrees and a doctoral degree. Even in all of that, I still find myself, with all things you're saying, feeling like an imposter, feeling undervalued, feeling like my opinions don't matter, feeling less respected in that manner. And even most recently in my experience, I was actually passed over on for an executive level position I applied for, which the other candidates that also applied were not, I don't think it's qualified. So my question for you is, you know, I've learned in my journey so far that sometimes even perfect isn't good enough when you look like we look. And so what advice would you have for African American individuals trying to break to that high executive level ranks? What can we do? I know I see all the tools here, but what are some of the things that maybe you've seen or experienced that you would provide me to say to keep going? Because I am in that space right now where it's like, I've done all this. I was on the sticky floor. I got my doctor. I did all these things. And still, well, you don't have enough experience yet. We'll get some more experience, and then we'll do it kind of thing. So any advice you could share would be great.
Yeah.
You said relocated.
She did.
I would say in your situation, you're probably going to have to build relationships.
Yep.
Because that's the only thing that's going to help you. Because you don't have other people who look like you who can help you up. You're going to have to build relationships with people who are not like you, who will advocate for you.
That's right.
That's going to be the only way you probably can get it move forward and at least reduce some of the stick on the floor.
Yeah, find someone that has that is people oriented within your organization or outside of, and then try to get them to sponsor you. You know, you just make a relationship build a relationship with them, and show your worth. Right, you come to them with showing how you're capable of doing this, that, and the other thing, and then just slowly build that relationship and see how your career can progress from there.
Can I say, please, we need to stop internalizing the double standard, right?
Right.
I don't feel that I need to work any harder than anybody else, okay? And when we feel, and we say it all ourselves, oh, you know, you got to work twice as hard to get half as much. And when we say that, what we've done is rubber stamped it, right?
Yep.
And I am saying be courageous enough to say, Sally has a GED, and she's making, well, okay, she was Savannah, now she's Sally. But anyway, Sally has a GED, and she has this VP title. And so don't be afraid to point out the disparities. and recognize that, you know what, people say don't burn bridges, you know what, you're not moving anyway, so what do you have to lose? Okay. Okay. And let me say this, and if people are offended that you advocate for yourself, that's another indication that this is not where you belong.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
And their comfort level is not more important than yours. All right? So I'm sorry. But anyway, can we get one more question?
Thank you.
Julian. Thank you. Who called me auntie? Go ahead.
Good afternoon. To echo, thank you for doing this. So, from 2020, the George Floyd situation, I'm in the government sector, and something that was very clear after that situation was that the murder. Thank you. Thank you. Something that was very clear is that many leaders were not prepared to have certain conversations. And so, my question: can you speak on? One moment, can you, because that's heavy. Can you speak on almost the pressure to take on those conversations as normally the minority in the room?
Yeah.
Consistently, holding that weight, holding it.
Yeah.
Because we talk about asking, hey, are we okay in the room? And I found, just thinking back, I made phone calls, and other people that look like me made phone calls to check up on me. But the people that were asking me to be the face
Yes.
Yes.
and to represent them
Yes.
weren't checking.
Right.
That's very real, and it happens across the organization. You know, with the underrepresentation, you'll be the face out in the community. You're going to be the one that's volunteering, or maybe you're underrepresented, so you're going to represent the entire Black community for your organization, for the one or two. That's a really heavy weight, and it's still happening. I think we also, though, we have to set some boundaries as well on what we can do. Otherwise, you'll be facilitating all of those conversations, which is incredibly heavy, and that will continue to be part of your role. And we all know that even though we come in and we say, okay, I have to exude excellence, I don't have the luxury to be average, that's stuff we said we were going to stop saying, right? But once you've got to the point where you come in and you're exuding all this excellence, then the next thing you know, when you get to, hey, I'm just going to do my work and do my job, now you're not performing as well.
And you don't smile and talk as much.
Exactly. So I would say definitely set some boundaries on what you will or will not do, because it doesn't matter. You can shrink the plate down to here, and it's going to be the size of an appetizer plate, and it's just going to get this high.
Yeah, and what happens with that is it's called, the research calls it emotional labor.
Yeah.
And we're constantly giving that up. You know, it's unpaid, right? But there's a tax on us, an emotional tax for us to do that. And the company doesn't care about that. You know, they just want this particular problem to be fixed, and you're carrying the weight of it. You're carrying it home, and nobody's attending to it. So you have to create those boundaries, as Michelle said, and really try to take care of yourself before you take care of that company.
That's right. Can we get this one last question? Because one last question.
Have something that you do for yourself.
Absolutely.
So one thing, if it's one thing you can do something for yourself that is apart from everything in your life, even your family, everything in your life, something that's for you only to help center yourself and protect your peace.
I need to address the panel. We are over time.
Well, you knew this was a hot topic.
However, this is a good spot to
Going to
let
your
you know
next
we are
room.
doing this deep dive afterwards.
Going
I
across
apologize
next
for
door.
cutting you short on
Let me say,
time.
make sure that you scan this barcode so that you know how to get in touch with us. This is a continuing conversation online, obviously in the deep dive, but beyond that, we will do things online. We've already done some things online beforehand, so we will do more of that. We'll do webinars, and let's go next door and keep talking.
Before you go, first of all, we'd like to thank Michelle, Helen, Stacy, and Tara. Please remember to complete your session survey, whether you're here in person or joining us virtually. Your feedback is incredibly important to us. We encourage you to keep the conversation going. We're going to have our deep dive session in Maple 1-2, which is out the door here to the right or to the left if you're facing this way. And thank you again for your participation. We look forward to seeing you soon, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Thank you.